We've got breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ from the NFL, where the Las Vegas Raiders are set to hire Antonio Pierce as their full-time head coach. That's according to our Jonathan Jones. He took over as the Raiders interim coach in Week 9 after Josh McDaniels was fired, finishing the season with a 5-4 record. During Pierce's interim tenure, Las Vegas allowed the fewest points per game and scored the most defensive touchdowns in the NFL. Let's bring in our senior NFL insider for more on this. JJ, your reaction to this, I guess not a surprise that the Raiders have opted to go with Pierce.
Not a surprise at all, Jeremy. The Las Vegas Raiders never put in an interview request for a coach currently employed by another NFL team. They're the only team that did that. Of course, the New England Patriots, who had it written into Gerard Mayo's contract that he would be appointed the next head coach after Bill Belichick left. The Raiders, a very unique search where they simply fulfilled the Rooney Rule. That's what they did. That's what the NFL sort of forced owner Mark Davis to do. And so he interviewed 2 external candidates with diverse backgrounds. One, Leslie Frazier, the former Bills defensive coordinator and Vikings head coach. The other, Chris Richard, defensive coach for the Saints and I think the Seahawks or Cowboys before that. And then that's it. And then it was Antonio Pierce's job. Look, in the final 9 weeks of the season, this was a Raiders team that went 5-4, that had the best defense in the entire NFL by a number of various metrics, and a locker room that loved Antonio Pierce. He's a guy who grew up a Raiders fan. There's so many narratives around it, but narrative doesn't always win you the job. You actually have to be a great football coach as well, and look right there at how much better this team got once Josh McDaniels was fired on Halloween night and Antonio Pierce installed as the head coach. And so now what's next for the Raiders is finding a general manager and filling out Antonio Pierce's coaching staff moving forward.
In terms of, you mentioned that, Raiders fan, and he kind of fits the mold of what they were looking for. How much of this was not just about the record, but about players publicly lobbying and privately lobbying Mark Davis to make this guy the head coach?
I think that had a lot to do with it. It had some to do with it, I should say. But it didn't have everything to do with it. If you always listen to players all the time, you're not going to wind up winning all the games that you want to. Like, yeah, they want a player's coach, and sometimes they don't need a player's coach. Sometimes you, as the owner, as the ultimate decision maker, you have to determine what is best for your franchise. And so the proof was in the pudding out there on the field. Right? It was 5-4. It was the best defense in football in the final 9 weeks of the season. And then it was the amount of fun these guys were having and how they wanted Antonio Pierce to be their head coach. And then it's how he represents you and your franchise. And then for Mark Davis, frankly, it's about living with some regret. Probably. Remember when John Gruden resigned amid the uncovering of racist and misogynistic emails a few years ago? Rich Bisaccia became the interim head coach and helped this team to a fantastic finish amid a number of controversies on and off the field. And then Mark Davis decided, I'm not going to go with Rich Bisaccia. I'm going to go with this package deal of Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler as the head coach and general manager, respectively. And so having lived that experience, I think that also informed Mark Davis's decision that, hey, I got a pretty good thing going here with Antonio Pierce. Let's keep it going.
JJ, to that end, I should say, how important is it for Mark Davis to get this one right?
Well, he knows he has to get it right. He knows that as an NFL owner, he's been a failure. I mean, there's no other way to view it when you look at wins and losses, when you look at postseason success or failure. He has not been able to deliver a winner, a consistent winning championship team to the Raiders fans from wherever they are, Oakland or Las Vegas. And so he does need to get this right. And look, nothing's going to happen to him if he doesn't get it right, of course. He's the owner. So there is that. There's no specter of consequence beyond embarrassment and, some more money flying out of his coffers. But he wants to get this right because he understands that this is a proud franchise that he has inherited from his late father, Al Davis, and that it has not at all come close to the heights that it had been when he was a small boy. And so He understands under his stewardship that things have to change, and obviously he's hopeful that things are beginning to change over these past 9 weeks and continuing on into the 2024 season and beyond with Antonio Pierce as the head coach.
And now that we've entered the offseason, JJ, you mentioned the GM search. To your understanding, with the contact that you've had with officials, where is that at this point? And now, obviously, that is probably the next piece of business that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, and I think that piece of business will be taken care of in short order. I would anticipate within the next couple of days. Look, we've all been wondering what the holdup here is with Vegas, because everybody knew that it was going to be Antonio Pierce. In fact, this deal may have essentially been figured out in principle well before you and I began talking just a little bit ago, Jeremy. As far as general manager, they had interim champ Kelly there. You would think, this is just logic, this is educated estimation, this is my history in the NFL. You would think if it were going to be Champ Kelly, and Mark Davis knew it, that he would package this together, that it wouldn't just be Antonio Pierce and we're still figuring out the GM. He's been there as the interim GM as long as Antonio Pierce, of course, has been the head coach. I'd also look very closely at Colts assistant general manager Ed Dodds, a well-respected guy, someone that Mark Davis really likes. He was close to getting that GM job. The last time it was up a couple of years ago, he interviewed again for that. He was one of 6 candidates who interviewed for that, as well as senior personnel executive with the Bengals, Trey Brown, Kelly Klein with the Denver Broncos, Tom Telesco, the former general manager of the LA Chargers, were among the folks there who did interview. Terrence Gray, director of player personnel for the Bills. So there were 6 folks in total. I do believe that shortly we will learn who is ultimately going to be the general manager, but I think the 2 names that really stand out to me, of course, interim GM Champ Kelly and Colts assistant GM Ed Dodds.
Yeah, there are reports that are kind of coming out that Champ Kelly is meeting with the Raiders brass kind of as we're talking about this situation with Antonio Pierce, because this is a very unique situation, because usually you have the general manager who has input on the head coach, and now you've kind of got a different situation. So how surprised would you be if it doesn't end up being Kelly?
I don't know. Right now, you know, if it were going to be Kelly and you knew that, then you would probably put it out right now.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's sort of where we stand.
All right. Our senior NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, joining us to discuss that the Raiders finalizing a deal to hire Antonio Pierce as their next head coach. Thank you very much, JJ. The coaching carousel continues to spin as we have another vacancy that is filled with the Raiders and Antonio Pierce. But we still have a number of jobs still out there, including the Panthers, Chargers, Falcons, Seahawks, Titans, and Commanders. Falcons could be the next one to fall. They are, of course, meeting with Bill Belichick, a second meeting there. We'll see what happens there. And, of course, keep it here on HQ. We'll keep you updated on all the spins of the carousel.